Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome in here with me and Brandon Funston, Michael Beller and Brandon Funston, talking you through week 2, helping you get your lineup set here on, I don't know if we call this the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast, Funston, because we're really just talking through week 2. It's a little bit different than what we do during the week, but we can call it the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. How you doing? What are you looking forward to in week 2?
Oh man, yeah, we just talk this stuff out, talk our problems out, and hopefully we help other people along the way. But I was thinking about it. I'm kind of invested in a lot of Williamses this week. Interested in how Tyson's going to do in his second game. Mike Williams, can he show out again? Got a good matchup. Javonte Williams, is thinking, some milking the clock time for him, and even Jamal Williams in another potential garbage time. Is he going to do it again and kind of be right there with DeAndre Swift? So there's a lot of things I'm going with in terms of the Williamses. And James White, I just noticed I have a lot of James White in my lineups, and I'm feeling some James White. I'm trying to make like a Marvin Jones James White decision, and I'm feeling like this is a James White game this week.
James White and the Patriots, big favorites actually in New York, taking on the Jets. I'm surprised to say I'm not surprised to see them as favorites. I'm surprised to see them as 6-point favorites in that game. So that's one that we will be watching closely, certainly with a couple of rookie quarterbacks going back and forth. Another game that I've got my eye on very closely. It's one in your neck of the woods, Titans and Seahawks getting together, and I feel like the Titans offense should be due for a bounce back spot against the Seahawks, but at the same time, like, Seahawks could very easily win this game by a touchdown with their offense going up against a Tennessee defense that was a problem last year and was a big problem last week against the Cardinals.
Yeah, big problem in that they let the Cardinals score right away, and if you can't get into Derrick Henry and start giving him meaningful run early in the game, you're in big trouble. And I think that's, obviously Seattle will hope to get out early again like Arizona did, but Tennessee has got to go back to their old formula, give Derrick Henry the ball early and live off that play action.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll maybe hope to see from the Titans here later today. Go ahead, get your questions in the chat. We're going to let you guys populate that for a couple more minutes before we start getting to them here. One more question for you, Funston, that I want to make sure we discuss here. San Francisco backfield. Trey Sermon is active. There's really no big inactive news. Trey Sermon being active is something we expected. He's active. If you spend 75% of your fab budget, however, on Eli Mitchell, feel like you got to get him in there. How are you looking at these 49ers backs, assuming you have either one of them?
Yeah, I think this is still another Eli Mitchell game. I mean, he had, 19 carries last week. Yep. I think he could do that again. And this might be, who knows, this might be the last time that we'll say that there's one San Francisco 49er running back that's just going to own the backfield work share. But this is that game. It's already kind of coming out. The reports are that's going to be the same as last week. And if Trey Sermon shows up and gets a handful of touches here and actually does something good, and doesn't take any steps backwards, I think we'll see him start to build off of that workload, and we'll get back to a more traditional Shanahan backfield. For right now, it feels like he's the guy that they trust, and he's the guy that's going to get a whole lot of touches.
Yeah, might be a peak Eli Mitchell value week if that indeed does end up happening in their big NFC showdown with the Eagles. Let's start getting to your questions here. First one, Funston, comes to us from GFNC. What do you got here? Jamar Chase versus T. Higgins in a half PPR league. Bengals are in Chicago taking on the Bears. I can tell you sitting, I don't know, maybe 10 miles or so from Soldier Field. It is unseasonably warm for the middle of September in Chicago. Very hot. It's going to be like mid-80s during the game. Otherwise, it is, or in other words, very good offensive football weather for these teams. Who do you like out of these Bengals receivers if you can only play one?
I was just looking for a coin so I could flip it, but I honestly have these guys back-to-back on my rankings this week. Pretty much in all preseason, I sort of had it the same way. I had Higgins ahead of him, but I think you play the hot hand. I think you have to go with the context clues of week one. I don't think we're just going to say, okay, this is Jamar Chase leading the way now. This just feels like one of those receiving cores where it could be any given week. It could be Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. But until we know that's for sure, I think I play with the week one hot hand in Jamar Chase.
Something else that's going to be maybe tricky to figure out is that the Bears have, one one corner who they really like to rely on in Jalen Johnson, a guy who had a great rookie year and a solid showing in week 1 against the Rams. And then on the other side, since they were forced to cut Kyle Fuller, they've got Kindle Vildor as their starting corner. And I think whichever one of these guys gets matched up with Vildor more often is going to have the better game. I lean toward T. Higgins in this one, but I do think it is really, truly a coin flip, and it's a matter of which one of them maybe hits a big play. But I buy this Bengals offense in Chicago against the Bears. No Eddie Goldman for the Bears. We saw them have a big-time trouble with their pass rush against the Rams without Goldman last week, and even though this Bengals offensive line is not one that really stands stout in front of Joe Burrow, Bears have trouble getting home. We can see big days for both of these Bengals receivers, and you can throw Tyler Boyd in there as well. Let's get to this question from Matthew. He wants one in a full PPR: Mitchell, Gaskin, Tyson Williams, or Mike Davis?
Well, I mean, not a lot of great matchups in there. I guess Tyson probably has the best for a running back, but we've seen this, this is going to be a timeshare backfield. It could even be split 3 ways with Devonta Freeman. So I'm going to go back to the guy I said we feel like is going to have a big workload this week, and that's Eli Mitchell. I don't love the matchup, but again, none of these guys really have great matchups or great situations. Mitchell, to me, has the best path to high volume.
I think Mike Davis has that path as well. I would still lean toward Mitchell, but I seem to be higher than most on Mike Davis this week. Yeah, it's a terrible matchup against Tampa, and yeah, that's a game that could be 21-0 in the middle of the second quarter. I fully follow that logic. But Mike Davis had 15 carries and 6 targets in a game that got out of hand late, but one that the Eagles were in control of really from the jump a week ago. I think his volume is going to be pretty safe. We saw Patterson get involved a little bit more in the second half than he was in the first half, and he was involved in the first half. Mike Davis is going to cede some touches to Cordero Patterson in that Atlanta backfield. That's going to happen, but I think his volume week in and week out is relatively safe. I'm still playing Mitchell if I'm only playing one of these guys, but I'm saying if you have Mike Davis, don't run away from him because of the matchup and because of the fact that he didn't really do much for you last week. I think there's going to be plenty of volume for him every single week. I would play Mike Davis over both Myles Gaskin and Tyson Williams. Even though Williams had that game he had last week, it just sounds like we're going to see a whole lot of backfield sharing already for this Ravens team on Sunday night against the Chiefs. Our next question, Funston, comes from Alper. Alper wants our thoughts on Kenyon Drake. I'm not believing that Barber will be their RB1. I still want to buy Kenyon Drake as the more productive back, regardless of how they're used for the Raiders today. But I wouldn't be auto-placing Drake into my lineup. I would need to be, I don't want to say thin at running back, Funston, but I would need to feel like I was reaching a little bit to actually reach for Kenyon Drake.
I feel like Kenyon Drake belongs in that last question. Like if you had Kenyon Drake, you could lump him in with the Myles Gaskins, Tyson Williams, and Mike Davis. Because I think, Kenyon Drake's probably going to do no worse than splitting the carries. But we saw in week 1, what I've been saying, he's going to be the guy in the passing game out of the backfield, and that's going to probably lead to 5-6 catches a lot of weeks. This feels like one of those weeks as well against Pittsburgh where, they might want to use him out of the backfield. So PPR sense, I kind of like him this week. I get that he's a little bit of a question mark, but I feel like mid-20s run back is probably fair as far as a ranking, mid to late 20s.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that if you're thinking about guys like that, that's who you'd be thinking about. You'd be thinking about Kenyon Drake alongside of, and I agree with you. Like if Josh Jacobs isn't going to steal significant targets away from Kenyon Drake, no one in that Raiders backfield is going to. So we could see a nice receiving day for him later today. Let's get to Christian's question here. Pick 2, full PPR: Damian Harris, Brandon Cooks, and Elijah Mitchell. I'm going to give us one to start off, and then Funston, you take it. I think Damian Harris is definitely a play, even though he's not going to be a pass catcher, even though you're feeling maybe a James White game. With Ramondre Stevenson inactive, it is all Damian Harris all day running the ball for the Patriots. So even though he takes maybe a little hit in PPR, there's still too much there to sit Damian Harris for me.
I love Damian Harris this week. This is where I'm like, I have James White and Damian Harris in a league, and I'm thinking about playing them both. I wouldn't mind owning everything that the Patriots do on the backfield against the Jets. So having a little bit of because I think it's going to be just 2 guys this week, maybe a little Brandon Bolden, maybe a little J.J. Taylor. I don't know, but it just seems like a lot for those guys. So I'm just going to follow volume again. I'm going to go with Elijah Mitchell. Brandon Cooks, I know, had the big day. It was against Jacksonville. If you watched the way it came, it was some, almost like Hail Mary-ish kind of random big catches. I think he had 2 40-plus yarders and another like 24-yarder. And I'm just like, I don't know that that Tyrod Taylor's going to be able to do that and sit back and chuck it up to Cooks and have that kind of success against Cleveland this week. So I think Brandon Cooks could be headed for a little bit of trouble. I have him ranked just outside my wide receiver 3 range this week.
Yeah, the Texans had a nice day last week against Jacksonville, and I think that they're maybe a little bit better than we were giving them credit for coming into the season, just because of all the veterans on that team. There's a certain floor of competency when you have that many veterans on a team, but I think we're also going to be reminded this week against a very strong Cleveland team why everyone was saying this is a 2-3 max 4-win team. I like the Browns to run away with that one, and so I'm with you. We're going with both backs here, Christian. Damian Harris and Elijah Mitchell. Let's get to Z's question. Z's want Elijah Mitchell or DeAndre Smith. Is this enough to bench Mitchell for you, Funston?
No, I'm going with
Assume it's DeAndre Swift. Yeah.
Oh, DeAndre Swift. I was like Devonta Smith. Yeah. Who is this? Who is this guy? If he's a combination of those guys, then give me him. But
yeah.
Man, I think I'm going to go DeAndre Swift in this one. I can see this game playing out a lot like last week's did. I don't think Green Bay's bad. I think they had a really bad day. I think at home on Monday night, Aaron Rodgers is going to scorch earth, and I think we got garbage time for DeAndre Swift coming. He looked great in garbage time. You get him out there, loose defenses, dropping the ball in the passing game. He can make a lot of yardage, accumulate a lot of points in fantasy doing that.
We are on the same page again here. If let's also remember that going into last week, he was, had the groin injury at the end of the summer, and we're maybe going to ease him in, and he got eased in, and Jamal Williams had plenty of a role in that offense as well. And you still saw Swift go north of 100 yards from scrimmage. He got in the end zone. He got 6 passes in that game. So I think that role for him is set in stone. I like Swift better than Mitchell. Sean Kelly with a question for us here. James Robinson against Ronald Joe. We got a couple of questions against Ronald Jones. Then we got Ronald Jones against Nyheim Hines. And then 2 out of T. Higgins, Mike Williams, and Deebo Samuel. So let's take that first one first. Let's just ping pong these back and forth. You take James Robinson against Rojo. I'll take Rojo against Hines. You take the 2 out of 3 question.
Man, I'm going to go ahead and go with James Robinson here. At least James Robinson split with Carlos Hyde, but he's still probably the lead guy there. And if you want to think about the narrative here, if they're playing from behind, I don't think it's Carlos Hyde. I think it's James Robinson. So Rojo, we'll see. He's supposedly out of the doghouse, but again, we're splitting 3 ways there, and I don't want a piece of that.
I'll take Rojo over Nyheim Hines in standard. Nyheim Hines is going to be a really important piece for the Colts, and in full PPR leagues, I can get on board with him. But even in half PPR leagues, Hines value takes such a significant hit that it's hard to really want to get him in your lineup. In standard leagues, he needs to score a touchdown. He basically becomes what we talk about with tight ends. If he scores a touchdown, great. If he doesn't, you're probably going to be disappointed. I'll take Ronald Jones over Nyheim Hines in a standard league.
All right. Do you want me to take the first of the 3? Or do you want me
to why not? 2? Let's do that. If I agree with you, I'll take the same one. I think I'm going to. I think T. Higgins is an easy play out of these 3.
I don't. He's my 3rd.
Oh, really?
Again, I'm following volume, and 2 guys that got massively targeted in week 1, and Mike Williams and Deebo. So that's where I will go. Who would you sit then if you were going to start T?
This is the hardest one, I think, because I like Mike Williams had those 12 targets. He's playing in a game with the highest over-under on the board this week. The Cowboys are without multiple starters, including DeMarcus Lawrence, so you figure Justin Herbert could have a ton of time. I mean, there are great arguments for all 3 of these guys. I'm probably sitting Mike Williams. I will say, Sean, though, I would want to find a way, and we don't know what the rest of your lineup looks like. Maybe there is no way, but I would want to find a way to start all 3 of these guys because I think all 3 of these guys are pretty comfortably Funston top 25 receivers this week. And so this is a good problem to have, but a problem nonetheless in figuring out which of the 3 you're sitting down. I lean toward Williams, but I wouldn't feel great about it.
Yeah, I think it's just, like you said, if there's a way to figure out a way to get all 3 of these guys in, if this is the same team that has James Robinson and Ronald Jones in there because they're both full PPR, figure out a way to sit both of those guys.
Yeah, love those 3 receivers today. How about a question from Alfonso? Mike Davis or Ronald Jones, half PPR, and then we got Mike Davis against Latavius Murray. Let's just rank these 3 guys in order, Funston. Davis, Jones, and Latavius. Who you got?
I'll probably go Davis, Jones, Latavius in that order. If this game with Kansas City ends up being a shootout, I don't know how big of a role Latavius Murray ends up having in that.
With you right there, same page. And Mike Davis, pretty easy for me as the answer in both of these questions. I don't see it as particularly close. Again, Yes, last week was disappointing. Yes, this week could be another blowout. 15 carries, 6 targets for Mike Davis. You can quibble with the production. You can't quibble with the volume. If he gets that again, you're going to want him in your lineup. Let's take a question here from BCM. We're looking for a second running back out of Devin Singletary, Kenny Gainwell, Carlos Hyde. Who you got here, Funston?
Singletary, Gainwell, Hyde.
Tony Jones Jr. also. I missed him at the end.
Okay.
Tony Jones Jr., yeah.
Man, I'm tempted to say Gainwell, but I think I'm going to go back to Singletary, who, he was a lead guy, and he showed out really well. A lot of people talking about how he should have got more touches. Let's go ahead and see if maybe they'll give him a few more touches this week, but give me Singletary.
Zach Moss active this week. He was inactive a week ago. I lean towards Singletary just because I think the Bills could really bounce back offensively. That game sitting with an over-under of 47 and a half. Depending on where you look, I think that game goes over. Gainwell would be my other choice also, but I don't know. It's Singletary can be the guy for Buffalo or something close to the guy. Gainwell, we know, is going to have to be, picking all of his stuff up on whatever Miles Sanders leaves behind. And there's going to be a role for him to play, but I don't know if it's large enough to the point that I would want to start him over Singletary. So we are in agreement. Once again, Devin Singletary, our player here. Let's get to this one from Jacob. Man, a lot of Ronald Jones today. Ronald Jones against Tyson Williams. I assume that's Higgins, T. Higgins, Nelson Aguilar, or the RB not chosen. Who you got here, Funston?
Well, Higgins, that's the obvious one there.
Agreed.
Well, unless it's Rashad, and then that's
maybe it's Bob Huggins.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think I'd keep Bob Huggins in line blocking. I don't know.
I don't know if Huggy Bear is going to catch too many passes.
And then give me Tyson Williams against Kansas City, a game that's going to have a high over under. Probably should get a little bit of run in the passing game as well as handle some carries. So that I feel a little better about him.
All right, we are in agreement there. So let's move right on to this one from Big Papa. Man, didn't know Kermit the Frog was so violent. We've got Marquise Brown, Brandon Cooks, Cole Beasley, Mike Evans, and Deontay Johnson. We're going 2 of these guys, Funston.
Yeah, I look at it. They all had pretty good weeks except for Mike Evans. But I'm going with the guys that you picked as the first 2 guys in your draft, Mike Evans and Deontay Johnson. And I don't think it's really that close.
Without question, I don't think it's close. Personally, let's get to Al's question here. Half PPR. We're looking for upside in this one, Funston. Najee Harris or Melvin Gordon. Again, I think this is a pretty smash spot for Najee Harris.
Yeah, it is. It didn't look good week 1. The offensive line has question marks, but we got to figure Buffalo's pretty good defense as well. Yep. The Raiders, I think, this is a game where they might just want to try to see what kind of max value they can get out of Najee Harris and just give him, a really sizable workload this week. I think I'm with you. He's not splitting any carries. And who knows? This could be a game where they decide to let Javonte Williams for Denver just cut his teeth as much as he can in a game that they could be controlling early.
This is a really tough spot for the Raiders. They played Monday Night Football, so they were already going to be on a short week. It was an overtime game. They went pretty deep into that overtime against the Ravens. Now they go cross-country to Pittsburgh, traveling through 3 time zones, playing at 1 p.m. Eastern against a very physical Steelers defense. I think that this game could get out of control in a way that doesn't actually reflect the gap between the teams, but it's just a really, really tough spot for the Raiders. And so if that ends up happening along those lines, I think we see a big, big game out of Najee Harris. And Al, I'll just tell you this also. Got to bet on him to go over 74.5 rushing yards. So I am totally in there with you on Najee Harris if that is the direction that you would do indeed go with. Let's get to Matt Straub joining us here, half PPR. He needs 2. Robert Woods, Deebo Samuel, Cortland Sutton, and Devontae Smith. Not a bad group to choose from. Who you got, Funston?
Yeah, I actually kind of like Cortland Sutton after kind of a dud last week, but I don't think I can steer clear of Robert Woods and Deebo Samuel. Those are my top 2. It's a good group, no doubt about it, but I'm feeling best about those first 2.
I am too, and I want to start both the other guys. I'm starting Cortland Sutton in multiple leagues, and I feel really good about it. But Woods and Deebo, at the current moment, Woods and Deebo are just a cut above. They're just in a different group that you don't really reach beyond to get to the next group of guys. So Woods and Deebo would be my play as well, although I would have a little something of a pit in my stomach sitting Cortland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy off the table here this week. We saw what that Houston offense did to Jacksonville a week ago. I think we could be seeing a big game out of Cortland Sutton, but that doesn't mean you want to sit Robert Woods or Deebo Samuel for him. Let's get to this one. Amplified to Rock. What's up, Andre the Giant? RB2 in a full PPR league. Darrell Henderson or Eli Mitchell?
Well, look, I didn't think Darrell Henderson looked great at all until garbage time against the Bears. But I like the matchup so much better. And Sean McVay didn't really come out and give a whole lot of, of an endorsement to Sony Michel getting a much bigger role this week. So I think, kind of like Eli Mitchell, this is a period in time where we expected, the Rams would run two backs, but I don't think we're there yet with that. I think it's still Darrell Henderson's show against Indy. Darius Leonard's been hurt. I feel a little bit better about the upside against the defense of the Colts for Henderson. Give me Henderson just barely.
Didn't Michelle not get his first touch in that game till like late in the third quarter?
Yeah, very late.
Yeah.
And what did he get? One or two? He didn't get.
And then he had a meaningless number of carries, and I think that could end up being the same case against the Colts here today. So I too am going with Darrell Henderson. Do we have any like official stance one way or the other on if it's Eli or Elijah? I don't think I haven't heard any like.
I feel like the pervasive opinion is Eli. I've seen the Eli kind of pop up more than Elijah. So I've started throwing my hands up on trying to push the Elijah thing and just going with Eli.
I'm gonna text Matt Barrows later today, our San Francisco 49ers beat writer here at The Athletic, and ask him if it's at an appropriate time. If they get blown out by the Eagles today, I'm not going to go in the locker room and say, hey, so Eli or Elijah? But, at some point, we need a definitive answer on whether it's Eli or Elijah.
Don't think he's resting easy with a big second half lead this week.
I do not think that is the case either. Let's get to this one from Solomon Rashid. Solomon wants to know Lamar or Josh Allen. Who you got, Funston?
Look for a trade. You can't do this every week to yourself, right? Like,
can't do this every week. Agree.
Yeah, I again, I'm going to that shootout with Kansas City. I want Lamar Jackson for that, but there's gonna be many weeks when I want to play Josh Allen, and there's gonna always every week I'm gonna want to play both of them, and don't do that to yourself. So get out of that situation.
Get out of the situation, Solomon. I would lean toward Josh Allen, but again, it's a very tough decision to make. This truly is a coin flip when you're talking about two top five quarterbacks who have literal QB1 upside every single week. So it's a tough situation to be in, certainly. We got another one with Dak or Rodgers. I lean toward Dak in this one, but again, a situation you probably want to get out of, Craig.
Yeah, this is like QB 4 and 5 for me this week, but I'm actually got Rodgers. I'm buying into Rodgers just wanting to just have the Dennis Rodman of rebounds this week. So, no wrong answer once again.
Yeah.
And once again, the same narrative. Get rid of one of these guys.
I joked about this on one show earlier this week. I can't remember if it was one with you and Jake, so I apologize if I'm repeating this to you, Funston. But if you told Matt LaFleur, like, all right, Matt, you're going to get blown out, embarrassed by the Saints in week 1. That's a guarantee. But silver lining, we'll let you pick who you want to play and where the game is week 2. He would for sure say Lions at Lambeau. Give me the Lions at Lambeau if that's what the case is going to be. And that's exactly
even better on Monday night national spotlight. There's just no way Aaron Rodgers is going to let this opportunity pass him by.
Yeah, I totally agree. I still go Dak just because that, again, that's a 55.5 over-under. I don't think the Cowboys without DeMarcus Lawrence can slow down the Chargers, and we know what Dak and company can do when they get rolling, even with some of the injuries that they have on the line. So I would go Dak, but yeah, these are two top 5 quarterbacks this week. Let's get to this one from Alper. Jamal Williams on the other side in the revenge game. I think we are. I know you're totally in on Jamal Williams, Funston. This is something we did talk about on our Thursday episode of the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast.
Well, and it's not because of a revenge game. It's because of the fact that Anthony Lynn talked him up as a significant part of this backfield, and that showed out in week 1, and it also showed out in the passing game where he was, every bit as active as DeAndre Swift. And again, it's easy to imagine a narrative that's almost exactly a replay of what they had last week, which was they could get down early and just be throwing the ball a ton, and that's going to work out for both of those backs.
Here's a fun one that involves Jamal Williams. It comes to us from Rolando Pabon. Rolando wants to know Mike Davis, Jamal Williams, or Corey Davis, picking 2 full PPR league.
I think I'm going to lean Mike Davis still. But to me, this is Mike Davis or Jamal Williams. I just
It's
worry.
2. You get 2.
Oh, give
you want both
those
backs
to me.
then?
Yeah, I do, because my worry with Corey Davis is just Bill Belichick looking at the Jets and saying, okay, I got one guy to stop. It's Corey Davis. I don't care about that backfield. I don't care about anybody else in the passing game right now, especially Jamison Crowder's out. Like, yeah, we can do that. We can handle Corey Davis. We've seen this happen all the time. Bill Belichick's a master of just erasing, that top guy. So I think that could be a trouble for Corey Davis this week.
Yeah, that's where I go to. And even that full PPR, where you think about it, boosting Corey Davis, boosting any receiver. I mean, he had 5 catches last week. And so, Mike Davis and Jamal Williams are going to touch the ball more than that many times in their games this weekend. So I go with both backs as well. Let's get to this one from Ryan. Myles Gaskin or Miles Sanders? To me, this is pretty easy, Funston. It's Miles Sanders.
Yeah, that's okay. And Myles Gaskin honestly looked pretty solid. If you took Myles Gaskin, I don't think you can feel too bad about that against New England in Week 1. But
no.
You're also pretty excited about what you saw out of Miles Sanders as well. And I think we're all sort of surprised at how active he was in the passing game when a whole lot of that talk was that, he was terrible in the passing game last year. They're looking to kind of like minimize his role in that capacity, and he was very much involved. So that was heartening if you're a Miles Sanders, someone who's rostering him right now. I think you got to feel really good about that.
All right, just a couple of minutes left. Let's try to get to as many of these remaining questions as we can. Lil Big Man wants to know Eli or Hunt in a half PPR league. I'm going Kareem Hunt.
You know what? It's something about me that says, you know what? Kareem Hunt, automatic touchdown. It's like, I would bet, I don't know what it is, if it's like plus 160 or whatever, but give it to me. I want the anytime touchdown for Kareem Hunt. For that reason, I will follow you. I think this is actually pretty close, so.
Yeah, I think it's definitely pretty close, too. I'm also betting a lot on the Browns controlling their game against the Texans, which I would be surprised if they didn't. Leland's got a Mike Davis, I'm going to assume, versus Jamal Williams question for us. Let's also lump Jonathan's question in just because we have a similar grouping, Mike Davis, Jamal Williams, and Kenyon Drake. So let's rank all 3 of those, and we answer both Jonathan and Leland's questions for them.
I'll rank them in the order they're listed right here, and it's almost like for my running back ranks, these guys are like right in a row. So it's it's not like there's a huge discrepancy here at all. But I'll take Mike Davis first, Williams second, and Drake third.
I will take him in that same order as well. So Leland, that gives us Davis over Jamal Williams for you. DJ's got a Julio Jones, Mike Davis, T. Higgins full PPR question for us.
Pick 2.
We're picking 2 here, yeah.
You know what? I'll go T. Higgins for sure. And man,
that's tough. This is a tough one. I want to play all 3 of these guys. That's what makes it so hard.
I'm also feeling the Julio Jones touchdown. I look at Zach Pascal did a couple short crossing routes for touchdowns, and I think that's there for him. So give me Julio Jones. I'm playing a hunch that he's going to have a bounce back game this week.
Man, I want to play all 3 of these guys. I find it very tough to sit there. I keep saying, I just can't get away from that guaranteed Mike Davis volume that I just think is going to be there.
I'm okay with that. I think the ceiling's higher with Jones. I think the floor is much safer with Davis. So play it how you want in that regard.
I agree. I'm playing Davis and Higgins. I feel terrible, though, about sitting Julio, and I want to find a way to get all 3 of these guys into my lineup, DJ. Ethan's got one for us, picking 2, Godwin, DJ Moore, Antonio Brown. I want to play all 3 yet again. I'm playing Godwin and DJ Moore.
Yep, I am too. If Antonio Brown ends up, leading the way for Tampa again in the passing game, this is something to reconsider for the following week. But Godwin was active, and DJ Moore is the number 1 guy in that passing game. So give me those 2.
All right, last question for today. This one comes from Nicholas Haylock, and I like this one, Nicholas, because it's 3 guys who I don't think we've said any of their names yet today. Tyler Boyd, Devontae Parker, or Tim Patrick. Who you got, Funston?
I would go in that order. And Devontae, you got to look at him as kind of probably the number 1 guy there. But
no Will Fuller.
Yep, exactly. So, but I'm still going to go Tyler Boyd. I think he's just a little bit safer. So that order for me: Boyd, Parker, Patrick.
I am also going Tyler Boyd. Again, I really buy this Cincinnati offense in Chicago. No Eddie Goldman. I think the Bears are going to have trouble generating a pass rush. Joe Burrow is going to be able to have his way as he sits back. And again, an unseasonably warm day, perfect weather conditions for offense in Chicago with the Bengals and the Bears. And that is going to do it for this edition of the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. Week 2, talking you through your start-sit decisions. Thanks so much for joining us. Good luck today. Let's all go out there. Let's get some wins. And hey, join us on the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast tomorrow when me, Funston, and Jake Seeley break down everything we saw today and take a look ahead to Week 3 waivers. Thanks for joining us. Good luck. Let's go get some wins, everyone.